Good evening. I'd like to call to order the continuation of the budget review session for Wednesday, April 18th. We have all counselors present except for Counselor Parker, who is under the weather and unable to join us this evening, but she will be back for next meeting on Tuesday. Calendar and communications. Any communications from any of the counselors?
I went to a budget meeting last night.
Counselor Heed went to a budget meeting last evening. Yes, Counselor.
I was just going to mention that I went to a very nice ceremony at the submarine base where they were celebrating the birthday. Unfortunately, it was freezing cold, and I left before the end. I was blue, but it was a very nice ceremony and had some excellent speakers.
Very good. Any other counselors with communications? Counselor Rossick.
I went to the seat meeting today.
Excellent. Any news on the cuts? Any news on the service cuts?
No, they're going to go through with them. Yeah.
They're
A
going
ledger dropped out.
Did Stonington?
Stonington I didn't officially see anything, but I believe they're going to drop out too.
Right.
Okay. If we are set, Mr. Byrd, are there any communications for us?
None for me.
Okay. All right, so we will begin with the remainder of our accounts. So we are on page 199. Councilor Moravsik, would you move a figure for 1075 capital reserves and contributions, please?
Yeah.
Mayor,
Oh, I forgot, yes. We have an item that we postponed from last night. I apologize. So, I apologize. So we need to finish CIP 5A, which is on page 222 in your budget book. And you should all have the email that was sent to us this afternoon. So I'm trying to think if we had a number on the floor.
50,000.
What, did we move that last night? I can't remember.
We did not move it. I might have said 0.
we moved 25.
So we have,
204.
yes, we have the main motion and the first amended motion on the floor. The main motion was for the amount in the bulk of 50,000. The first amended figure was 25,000. So did you want to ask any questions about the email we received today? Councilor Atwater?
I believe we then made a motion to postpone it or move it till tonight. So that's 3 motions. Now that that one passed, can we still make another motion?
You can have 3 budget figures.
3
So-
budget motions?
Yes.
Okay,
So
thank
the
you.
other motion was just to postpone action on it. So we have Councilor Atwater spoke. Councilor Perry?
I move for 0.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved by Perry, seconded by Atwater for 0 for CIP 5A. And would you like to provide your rationale, please?
Well, we just don't know what's going on with this. There are a number of things. We have only 2 readings that I know of, and we don't have it localized. And it seems that if we got readings from all the spigots, we'd be able to trace back and see where the lead contamination is coming from without spending $50,000 for architects and engineers to fool around with it. And we could do the work with our own departments to take out the section of wall and exchange the pipe that needs to be changed. But I think that we do definitely need more information before appropriating money to study this.
Any other councilors wish to speak on this? Councilor Franco, and then Heath.
So we received the spreadsheet, and it shows that there was testing done in June of 2016. Results were found in June, and it states, and I'm only going to deal with Fitch right now. The business wing, 2 fountains and 2 sinks are above the acceptable limits. Then in the summer, you replaced 2 fountains and pipes were not accessible. So then you retested in August and the results came back in October, and it stated that the business wing was above the acceptable limits. It didn't say anything about the sinks or fountains, although the fountains had been replaced. in the fixtures, correct?
The water to the sinks were turned off, and we tested the drinking water, the fountains again.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
We retested the drinking water, the fountains themselves.
Okay, because it didn't say this on here, it just says the business wing. Is it, can you
It's
explain to me where the business wing is?
Those are in the wing. So they had, with this process, I know there was confusion last night. That's why I had indicated that we should put a little sheet together for you, so you could clearly see the steps that we're taking in working with the water company. This is how they do business. They actually do this process to be able to identify where the area of concern is. So in doing so, we also brought in our, mechanics and our plumbers to really kind of do some of the work. And even after all of that, it came back, unacceptable. And health and safety is a main concern for us in a school with children and with the adults in the building. So this was postponed from 2017, and here we sit at 2018, and we're getting ready to retest. So you notice that also. So there will be retest done this summer in 2018. But if it continues to show that we have a problem, I think we have to take care of it, frankly.
Okay, so the business wing is not where administration sits, it is where you teach business.
No, it's not.
This is where one of the
No, it's not
confusions must have-
administration.
No, it's a student wing. for
Okay.
It's
business
down past the
education.
cafeteria. It's one of the oldest
Down
sections.
on the right.
Yeah, and to the right, past the.
Where typing used to be.
Past homemaking or.
Okay,
And I mean, I think this is what happens when you have buildings that are 50 to 70 years old and they use lead, to solder and in their pipes. So it is a concern.
no, I definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything on our sheet here that there was retesting is scheduled.
It does at the, it should say.
I had a note on there earlier this morning, I guess it didn't show up on it, that we actually had testing rescheduled for, again, scheduled for summer of 2018. It won't be just in those areas that have already, it will be doing the entire district again.
Can you explain what this, you want the money for a study, what the difference would be from a study to having actually people come in and give quotes to actually do the work of replacing the pipes?
Actually, a request was not for a study, but it was for plans and specifications to actually do the work.
On page 222, it says plans and specifications.
Yeah, there's something in there that says beyond that, they would have to do hire outside consultants
Yeah,
if this doesn't work.
okay,
Can we go on to the others and come back?
yeah.
Okay, Counselor Heed and then Schmidt.
Actually, my
And then
question
Ross.
was, I didn't see the email,
Oh,
so I've got it now.
Counselor Schmidt
Do
and
you
then
have the
Marovsek.
paper in front of you? I made extra copies.
Yeah, it's right here. Thank you.
When you say bottled water, do you mean a bottle like this, or
Uh,
do you mean the big bottles?
We're talking the big-
So that
big
people go
bottles.
up to that fountain and
It's in a
get their
cooler,
water?
yes.
And so what does that cost us?
I didn't get the exact figure on that today, however, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1,000 a year at
Right.
Claude Chester.
Right.
And the high school doesn't require, they haven't requested many bottles. We deliver them when the custodian in the building, when the bottle empties, the custodian requests them from the central office, so we're just taking them out of our supply at the central office and
Right.
and taking them down there.
Right.
Counselor Heed, no, Marovsek, I'm sorry, and then Atwater.
What's the level of the lead coming into the building? There's certainly a trace amount of lead coming into the building. How much is that, and how much does it increase in those areas that you're concerned with?
I don't have an answer to that. I'd have to
Because-
ask the City of Groton. The City of Groton monitors all their water coming into the building.
Yeah.
And it is within the reasonable limits.
Oh, yeah, it should be. But there's a trace amount. And when you have lead in the building, that adds to that trace amount. I was just curious. They're
I don't,
monitoring.
I never received that information. I don't know what that information is.
Okay.
I'd have to ask Groton Utilities for that
Because
answer.
every year or so, my house is monitored by Groton Long Point, because I'm on the first wave of the water, and I have to take the water and we give it, I guess we give it to the Groton Utilities to check it out. And I think you need to do that, all your buildings, wherever the water comes in, that should be monitored, and then you certainly should, wherever the old building and the new building join, there has to be pipes that are available that you should be able to get to. And that's where you should start making your checking, your testing, to the closest faucet or what have you that's in that area.
Right, agreed.
If we gave 0 tonight, what would that do for you?
Make us uncomfortable.
But that's, I mean,
We're in charge of children's safety, so I really want to be able to define the problem and figure out where it is and take care of it.
okay,
So-
now you can define the problem and take care of it with your internal, with your in-house people.
And we did try to do that,
Yeah.
but we felt like we needed another level of expertise in this area.
Okay.
But I do understand that you asked us to bring to the table the Claude Chester and the split between the two schools, and that sounds reasonable. We actually had found the same issue at Pleasant Valley, but as you know, we closed Pleasant Valley. So, and we will be closing, as you said, Councilor Moravsik, that we will be closing Claude Chester 3-4 years from now, too.
On Pleasant Valley, since you still have the key, you should put a note on those fountains so that nobody
There is.
in the
We
future...
actually put plastic bags over the fountains.
Okay, so that, yeah, so we...
Yes, sir.
If we were to give you $25,000, what would that do?
Well, I'd continue, if I got $25,000 tonight, I would continue to give bottled water to Claude Chester School and do the work at Fitch High School. That would be my priority.
Counselor Atwater?
I'm guessing that the pipe is like copper with lead solder on the joints, or is it lead pipe throughout?
No, it would be copper pipes with lead.
The way I look at it, and I may be crazy, but you've got a wing of the school, is what I understand, where this is showing up. And let's say it's 272 feet of wing or whatever. It would seem to me as though having a plumber come in, say, okay, we've got 272 feet of line, we need to run a new pipe, it's going to cost us this to tear out to get access, and just do it. I mean, if you've got the lead pipe problem with the concerns today, trying to look around and so forth, just do it and use the $25,000 or $50,000 to pay for it rather than doing more studies. And that's the way I feel.
I am opposed to the 0 figure. I would support the full amount because we are going to have kids in both buildings for several years, Fitch for as long as we're a town, I would assume. And specifications, that's exactly what it is. The specifications are going to tell the plumber where they're going to cut the wall, where they're going to go in, how much pipe they need to run, all of those things. So you can't just break into a wall and go at it. You need to have a plan. You need to have the specs out there before you can even contract for it. A plumber needs those specifications in order to get the work done. So I can't support the 0. Counselor Aubry and then Perry.
Well, we don't have the figure on the floor, but I would think that we should do 25,000 and ask that the money be put into Fitch and Claude Chester stay with the bottled water. It would seem to me that that would make sense. And, to me, it's the best approach.
That's the first amended figure. 25.
25?
The main motion
Oh, I'm
is 50,
sorry.
first amended is 25, second amended is 0. Counselor Perry.
If you get nothing, what will you do? Will you go on testing?
We plan to test this summer, yes.
Will
The
you
whole
test at
district.
more sites so that you might be able to narrow down the location of the...
We've already narrowed down the location, sir. We know that it's within a certain area.
But we plan
Can
to
you
do a
narrow it down
full-scale
further?
eval throughout the district in the summer.
I'm
Again,
sorry?
We, just like we did originally, we're gonna fully do water testing throughout the district in all of our buildings,
Okay.
just to make sure.
Could you narrow it down further with additional testing? For instance, Councilor Moravsik suggested you go back to where it comes in, test it there, and then you go out a little further, and you test it there, and you keep testing until you get a positive, and then you know that the problem with the lead seepage is somewhere between your positive test and your negative test. And that's where you should concentrate on replacing fixtures.
I think that we have that located. Doing what you're suggesting to do we might go further down the line back to where it enters the building and actually find that there's a section of 10, 20, whatever number of feet that aren't affected until we get to a certain fitting or something. But
Well, certainly if you find that you have clean water on one side of a fitting and dirty water on the other side of the fitting, and the problem comes from lead solder at the fitting, you'd have it pretty well localized where you have to go. And then you could continue testing distally from there. It does seem like a problem that could be handled in-house. The only thing I'm getting back as a feedback is, well, if we don't get anything, we're at all stop, or we're not going to do anything. What we're trying to say to you is that, at least some of us are trying to say, is that this is a problem that you can solve with your own deductive abilities, and you're going to pay $50,000 to someone to come in and probably do just what Rich was telling you that you should be doing. Pardon me, Councilor Moravsik. But that's what he was telling you should be done. But I'm not sure that you're going to, if we don't give you any money, I'm not sure you're going to do anything. And I'd like to have some feedback to tell me what you'll do if you get nothing.
I don't know if you wanted to reply or you want me to move on. It's up to you.
You take the 5th?
No, I'm not going to take the 5th on you, sir. I'm going to try and answer that question. We have a responsibility to the taxpayers and their kids, and we are going to do something. If that means that we have to, if you don't give us this money in the CIP, that means it's going to come out of my maintenance budget, and something else will have to be postponed. There's no question about that. It's that important to us to do something at this time. I don't know if you saw in the email, but we did submit this to the CIP last year, but it never made it to this level, to the town council. So it was cut again. It was cut last year as well.
Councilor Heed, Franco, and then Opry.
I don't know how you do plumbing or anything like that. And I'm not a scientist, but I know what lead does to kids. So I think this is a very serious issue. My question to the council is, would we reconsider something else in order to fund this particular CIP?
Councilor Franco.
So you're going to do retest this summer. So when you go back to Fitch to retest, are you just doing the random 2 tests on different areas? Or are you doing multiple? Because what you're saying here is you have it, yesterday what I got from you is you tested 2 faucets or
No,
fountains or,
we had two fountains test positive,
right.
or above the limit, allowable limit.
And you said they were randomly chosen.
Yes, but there were more than just those 2 that we tested. We tested throughout the school.
So
That's how the water company does this. That's their protocol.
okay, because that's what, yesterday we tested 2 because that was the protocol, but they
I
didn't.
knew it
and I
was
said,
confusing, that's why I wanted it to be able to
Right,
state
so-
it clearly in a timeline, so you could really understand the process.
So that's what I was wondering. So and that's why I had asked, after you tested and you found there was lead in 2 of the 2 features, did you test more of the school? And you had said no. So that's my question. This summer when it happened, when you're going to test, are you just randomly testing like 2 on each site, or are you going to test everything?
No, we're not going to test everything. I don't think we could, I don't think we can afford to test every faucet and spigot in the building.
But if you find 2 of them are positive, will you test further in that building?
Well, yes.
The whole old section should be retested. I mean, I'm sorry, but can I be recognized at all or no?
Not right now.
The whole old section should be recognized.
Once we found out that that area of the building had lead in the water at those fountains, that's when we shut the water off to that section, okay? Because that is it's a main line coming into that portion of the building. And those fountains, one of those fountains is at the beginning of that section, the other one is further down. So therefore, we know that there's lead in that pipe from point X to point Y. So, and then of course we changed those 2 fountains out, and when we retested and got the results back in October, that's when we found out that it was still there. So it was not, it wasn't, there was actually a notice put out by DEEP about certain water fountains that were manufactured with lead linings and stuff in them. And we actually went around and checked all of our fountains throughout the district with these serial numbers, and none of those matched that. But those 2 fountains at the high school in that section of the building did test positive again after we replaced them with brand new units. So the water still has lead contamination in it.
But the
above
kids
the
cannot
acceptable
drink
level.
out of it.
Right.
But they do have drinking water because you have the fountains with the bottled water.
At the high school, yes.
Right.
But both buildings, we will supply bottled water if they need it, yes.
Okay, Counselor Aubry is next.
It says that recommendations were for 3 things: secure area, provide bottled water, or flushing program. Did you try the flushing?
All three we do, yes.
Okay. And also, for the testing of the water, can you work with Groton Utilities on that?
We did.
Okay, so you're not going out to a private,
I used Mystic Air when we did some retesting in Pleasant Valley School because Groton Utility wasn't available the day that we wanted to do that. They did the other 2 schools in the second testing, but Mystic Air had somebody available, and it was the same price to do it with them. So.
And the same process too, which was interesting.
I would think maybe we could get Groton Utilities to just do the testing for us.
Any help we can get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Well, it was reasonable. It wasn't outrageous. It was, I think it was $1,600 for 14 tests, something like that. I said one of the invoices I saw today. So
Oh,
it was
that's pretty good.
$120 a piece or something
Yeah.
like that. And when you send it, and they're sending it out to another lab, so they're paying for it too. So.
okay, Groton Utilities did have a lab where they could do it themselves.
Yeah, not that particular test apparently.
Oh.
Counselor Franco and then Marovsek.
All right, I have to go back to the 2 test thing again. So you checked in, you found it was in the business hall, but did you check like the gym area?
Yes, there were other fountains throughout the building and other places that we tested. We tested throughout the entire building.
So what, because when you said they were random, I thought I misinterpreted maybe, but
I didn't mean that we went to one spot in the building.
Because you had said 2 random tests, like there were 2 random tests, so I figured these were the 2 fountains that you found. So you did other areas of the building as well.
If I said there were 2 random tests, I think I was talking about the fact that we tested and then retested, I think, but
Okay,
I don't recall saying that. But.
okay.
Counselor Marovsek.
Sounds like you want to replace the water coolers, because some of them, the manufacturer had indicated, or the DEP indicated that there was some lead in some of those?
Yes, DEP sent out a notice with a list of many water fountains that were found to have lead parts in them. They gave the serial number, so we went around and checked every water fountain throughout the district and all of our buildings. We didn't have one that had one of those serial numbers.
So you don't have an intention of replacing the others?
The water fountains themselves,
The water coolers?
water coolers. We did the 2 at the high school that are in the area that tested positive.
Okay. Have you reached out to Gary Snyder, the Public Works, to see if he has anybody who has the capability of helping you locate the problems? And also with Groton Utilities, maybe they have somebody who has some hands-on experience that you could maybe put together some kind of a small task force or an outreach program to have these guys come over and help, rather than to go out to a consultant. We should have this talent in-house.
I guess I could talk to Gary about, I don't know whether his engineers would be able to work on that or not, to be honest with you.
Well, it's a safety problem, and I think, under those circumstances, you might get the town manager to help you on this. We're not talking about a permanent, we're just talking I'm just talking maybe 2 or 3 days. If they can't do 2 or 3 days, there's something wrong in our program.
So the way I'm guessing this works, I'm not a plumber, don't claim to be a plumber. My guess would be when the water companies would come in to test, they would know where the various lines are. There's not one line, there's probably one line that brings the water to the building and then it splits off. That way you could shut things off if there were issues. So my guess is they went, okay, let's go to this line, let's test a couple here, let's test a couple there, there, there. They found lead here and they said, okay, that whole line. They found lead here, that whole line, and they said nothing's there, so we're good to go. So what I'm thinking you need next is you need someone to come in and say, okay, this wing, somebody tell us exactly how much pipe, how many fittings, and that's what the specifications are.
And you put it out to bid, so, with all good luck, it won't cost us nearly $25,000 and we can go in and fix the problem. This is like a ballpark figure, an estimate. Like the town manager talked about so many of them last night, we try to give our best guesstimate, but, if it comes in under, that's even better.
Councilor Heed.
I was basically going to say kind of the same thing, that people have known about the issue of lead for 40, 50, 60 years, something like that. There are protocols and things like that they follow. They do deduction. They don't necessarily pinpoint everything. And it sounds to me like you're coming to us with a plan that maybe isn't being explained properly or, thoroughly, let me put it that way. But that it sounds like the recommendation from the experts would be to go forward. So that's where I am on this one.
And we have been at this for a half hour, so I don't know if you have further questions.
The only comment I would make is that we've known about this since before the last budget session. That is more than a year. 2 budget sessions.
Since 2016, they've been, or 2017, they've been
We've known
asking
about
for
this
this.
for 2 years. We can't say now that it's an urgent problem because we've adjusted to it and kept the kids safe for the last 2 years. I think there is time to look at this and see if you can get in-house assistance from Mr. Schneider and his group, or from Groton Utilities, as has been suggested, without our expending another $50,000. And we were reminded that we have an obligation to the taxpayers and to the school children. But we do have, and I don't think the school children are in jeopardy now, but we do have an obligation to the taxpayers. And every time a problem comes up, we should not be looking to spend $50,000 from an outside consultant when we may have the resources in-house to do it, and we can save the taxpayers that much money. I think our tax rates have crept up, and they've crept up by the somewhat indiscriminate appropriation of money for things that could be handled inside without that appropriation. And for that reason, I'm recommending that you go back. I'm not against you. I'm for you. I'm not against the schools. I'm for the schools. But I'm also for the responsibility that this council has to the taxpayers of this town. So I again would suggest that you try to get it done without getting an outside consultant and check the resources that we have at our fingertips without additional cost.
So we are at the point where we have a main motion and 2 amended motions. if we have no further questions, we will be, do you want to go again?
Let me just ask,
Go
so
ahead.
there can be no more motions?
No, we have to vote the second amended motion first, which is the 0. If that fails, then we move to the first amended motion of 25,000. So did you have further discussion or question? Now's your chance.
I know. I want to do something at the high school, and I don't think this is something we want to leave forever. I'm conflicted between trying to figure out what it would, coming back with a quote of what the work would be, just coming back straight up with a quote of what the work would be next year, and have plumbers or whoever come in and check it, and maybe they'll just give you quotes, because maybe they know how to handle it. And I think two years ago maybe, or last year, I'm not sure exactly, but at some point this was brought to the council, or a CIP was submitted with 3 schools on it for 50,000. So I'm conflicted if 25 is the right number even. So I'm having a hard time here.
Well, if you don't have any other questions, then we should vote on the second amended figure, which is 0. So all those in favor of 0 for CIP 5A, say aye.
Aye.
Can you raise your hands, please? So Perry, Schmidt, Atwater, Franco, Moravsik, opposed, that would be me, and abstentions. And Aubrey and Heed abstains. So that passes 5 in favor. Do you need the names, or are you good? 1 opposed and 2 abstentions. Thank you very much for coming out again.
Thank you.
Okay, on to Councilor Moravsik, CIP, or not CIP, Capital Reserves, account 1075 on page 199, please.
The appropriations for 1075 is $2,535,000.
Moved by Moravsik, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Franco. Mr. Burt, did you want to address any of this? Or Director Landry? I'm sorry?
I need to give you the number.
Yes. Do you need time? Should we come?
Well, the original, the 2,353 was the proposed budget without, prior to your adjustments.
Right.
So if you'd like the number to contribute to the fund, just on the projects that you have passed.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, including the $50,000 that was just moved to 0, the number is $2,292,000.
$2,292,000. I'll move $2,292,000 for account 1075. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Granatowski, seconded by Moravsik. And did you want to explain what this is, Director Landry or Mr. Byrd? Or?
Okay, historically, the contribution to the reserve fund has been the amount of the projects that have been approved by the council. That's the process or guideline we've got in past years, for several years now. There was a time when this contribution to the fund was not tied to the amount of the projects. But if that's the council's desire, and not to try to add any additional funding to the capital reserve fund in an attempt to increase the fund balance, then this would be the number you would pass, and it would just cover the projects that were approved for the 19 budget.
Is everyone clear on that then?
Can I add one other?
Yes.
And we are using $500,000 of the fund balance.
Of the capital reserve fund balance?
Yes.
Right?
Councilor Atwater?
Cindy, when you say that it's for the projects we've approved, is it per project, or is it just in a lump sum that gets allocated to the projects?
Right, the numbers that you adopted for each one of those projects, that amount will be allocated to those projects.
For that project?
Right, to the total of the projects, including the, when we get to the 501, it'll be the grand total of the projects that you approved, including the sewer projects. But this is just to cover the funding part of it.
And then if this is the total of the projects we approved, and you're taking 500.
No, I'm sorry, I should, no, this is the total to contribute to the fund, where, and it takes into account the $500,000 of fund balance. I said that backwards when I said it
Okay,
before.
all right.
I
Could you say
apologize for
that again? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
This number takes into account that we are using $500,000 of the existing fund balance in the capital reserve.
So we
So your
really,
projects will be more than this, the total project.
so we did actually 2,792,000.
Yes.
Counselor Atwater?
If I ask Town Manager Cindy, it's surprising to me that in 2017, there was only 744,000 in capital projects, and last year only 448,000. Is that typical? I mean, it seems as though this talk about kicking the can down the road really was kicking the can down the road, and that's
Part of it's probably fund balance, I would imagine, too, though.
Well, if you remember, the 18 budget is when we were anticipating that huge decrease to ECS. So the capital projects were really looked at and they were really cut back. And that is how the Board of Ed came back and voluntarily, their 3 projects, to bring those to 0 last year. That's why that water project went to 0. So what we did last year is we did use $1 million of fund balance for the capital projects. And that's why the contribution from the general fund was only 448. There was only 1.4 million of projects for the general fund approved last year.
And do you recall 2017?
The projects that were approved,
Well,
the
it says
contribution was the
744, but I wondered if there was another large number taken from the fund balance.
Let me just, we have 18 and 18, I have 16 and 18, I'm sorry, I don't have the 17. I don't recall that we used fund balance, but I'm sorry, I don't have the 17 numbers,
That's okay.
the total projects.
I just think we're finally taking charge of some of the things that have to be done, that's all.
Well, you know, I apologize. The total projects were 1.9 million, but I don't know the breakdown between the general fund and the sewer. So the sewer in the 501 includes the total of the projects, general fund and the sewer projects.
We appropriated money in previous meetings for these capital improvement. Now, does that go into the amount that you just read to us as the money we've already spent?
Are you referring to the,
Well, up
what we
here,
did yesterday?
it says 128,000, 636, 398 proposed budget. Now, it's a little bit less than that. Does that include the money that you said is a little less, the amount that is a little less for our proposed budget? Does that include the capital improvement funds that we've already talked about?
Everything from last night is in there. That originally full amount would have had all the projects in there, and then
Okay.
you've now backed some out.
So now, are you backing them out to go into the reserve fund? What I'm wondering about, are we taxing the people twice? Once for the reserve fund to cover the capital improvement?
No, it was already built into the full amount. No, just the one time.
Okay, and so what we'll be doing is taking money out of that large budget to put in the capital reserve fund, is that right?
right, the amount that I just gave, the 2.2 million, is the amount the general fund will be contributing to the capital reserve fund to pay for those projects that were approved last night.
So we're taking out of the left pocket, putting in the right pocket. All right.
Counselor Heed?
Just a clarification on last year, I understand the tax rate went up, and then we got the state aid, which meant that there was leftover money that then went into the general fund. So what, are we using a portion of that tax that was raised last year towards the budget, or?
We would have had a higher increase without those cuts from last year. The remaining money went into the fund balance besides making the school whole and all that, but none of that fund balance is currently planned. But without those cuts from last year, it'd be a more difficult year this year, certainly.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, so we'll vote on the first amended figure as per the finance director is $2,292,000. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
I just want to clarify, so the 2.2 that she mentioned is just to cover everything we voted on,
Except for $500,000.
except for 500,000. So if we, So after all of our projects are completed and paid for, there'll be 500,000 left in there, or will there be zero?
No, there'll maybe $500,000. Right now, the fund balance has about $1 million in it. That's why we said we would use 500, because we took $1 million out of it last year. So that only left us with $1 million. So if, in a perfect world, we should have about $500,000 left in it. But,
Should
you
be
know,
half-
pending that we don't have any need to have additional appropriations in 19. That's why we like to have somewhat of a fund balance, because you don't know what could happen that you might need to. Crystal Lake Road's a prime example. When the state came, we just passed that. You had just approved that, the $116,000 demand deposit that we had to pay. That had to come out of the fund balance.
So is it recommended to go with the 2.2? Or are we supposed to have a little bit more buffer in there?
Well, that's what she said at the beginning. She laid out the options. If we wanted to, we could put more in to build fund balance over the years. What the number is that she gave us is just getting us through, pay-as-you-go almost.
Yes.
I think also, if you had to move some of the general fund balance over, if you had to, but hopefully we'll come out to the good and have some savings. We sweep the accounts, you know, every year too. So.
Right. We look at this fund.
Try again.
We look at this fund during the budget, and we don't really know, you know, the capital projects fund, all of those projects are good for 5 years, so to speak. They have a 5-year life. After 5 years, they lapse, whether they're completed or not. The funds would roll back into the fund balance. We also have a 3-year rule. If there's a project out there that has no expenditures or no encumbrances in 3 years, it lapses. So by the end of this fiscal year, we'll look, and Gary, I think, had mentioned it last night, we've started to ask them, can you take a look at your projects and see what you might have that's completed, that you could, there may be there's a small balance that would be turned out at year end, which would put a little bit money back into the fund balance. But this time, it's really estimates at time. So when I say there could be only $500,000 left, maybe we'll have another 100,000 that is closed out at year end. So maybe we'll have $600,000 in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Just a
Councilor Zuberi.
comment. It doesn't look like this is costing us anything. We've already appropriated this money. We're just moving it from the general fund that we've appropriated it to into the capital reserve fund, from which it will be then paid out to complete these projects. Am I correct?
Yes, when we put the budget to.
Okay, so the issue, as I'm seeing it, is it's no injury to our taxpayers. It's just a bookkeeping maneuver that we're approving.
I understand the bookkeeping maneuver.
Okay.
Mr. Byrd?
I was just going to say, when you first did the capital projects, that does obviously affect the taxpayer. This portion is just reaffirming those earlier decisions, really.
Can we reverse them now?
Reverse anything until it's closed, but
So,
I would recommend it.
I'll have to do some more calculations if you start changing numbers again.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on the first amended figure of $2,292,000. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I don't know what the sound is. So any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that passes unanimously.
That's the voters coming after us.
We're on to page 202, Capital Reserve Fund. And this is Councilor Franco.
Capital Reserve Fund, 5010.
Do you want, okay, we can either do, like we did last time, move the number in the book and then let Cindy give us a number, or do you want to just take it from her?
I don't know. Did you want to speak, John?
No, just give the
Take her number? Okay.
Okay, the total number is $3,523,000 even.
3 million,
Yes,
$523,000.
yes.
I so move. Is there a second? Seconded by Schmidt. Moved by Granatowski, seconded by Schmidt. Could you just explain what this is, please?
Yes. This number represents the total of projects that were approved, general fund and the treatment plant projects that were approved last night. And so these are the projects that will be set up in 19 for expenditure.
And you have a financing plan on 203 to see where the money's coming from. And the fund balance applied is the money that we just appropriated in the last account, correct?
The fund balance applied would be what we were using. That would be roughly the 500,000. It's a little bit less there because it takes into account estimated interest earnings.
Counselor Ober, did you have a comment?
Yeah, maybe this went by before, but for the sewer work, haven't we bonded for that in the past?
No.
No?
These are projects that the sewer operating fund includes in their operating budget, but we flow them through the capital reserve fund. So they budget for them, and they budget the contribution in the in the sewer operating fund. What you're thinking of is this is more like the infrastructure and the relining that Gary was talking about last night. The major projects, like major plant upgrades, that would be long-term debt. But we don't have any now. We have just clean water fund loan from, several years ago now that we took when we did the plant upgrade.
Thank you.
Counselor Atwater?
Showing my ignorance, what is the payments from other funds? I mean, what are those other funds?
Those are the two, that number will reflect the money that's coming from the sewer operating fund, the $731,000 to cover their projects, and the 2.7, the 2.2 that'll be coming from the general fund. This was, the 3.2 is what we had estimated based on the projects as proposed.
So that 3,266 is probably going to be a little less.
It'll be less, yes.
Okay. I assumed it was from there, but I just wasn't sure.
And that's because the $3.7 million appropriation operating expense number will be reduced.
Is there any other discussion or questions for Director Landry? Seeing none, all those in favor of $3,523,000 for account 5010 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. And it's 8-0. Was I giving you 9-0 before? I gotta amend my notes. All right, we are on to debt service. Counselor Heed, page 206, account 1076.
I wasn't sure which number I was supposed to move on this one.
And I have a number from Director Landry, if you'd like to.
I'll move a number of $5,266,790.
I'll second. That's the correct number, Director Landry?
That is the correct number, and let me explain the difference. When we put the budget together, we had anticipated the debt service for the bond sale that we just had this month, and when the bonds were actually sold, it came in just a little bit higher. It's an increase of about $44.62. So in order to have the debt service payment for next year be accurate, we just need to increase this budget by that small amount.
Could you repeat that number, please?
$5,266,790.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any discussion or questions? Counselor Atwater.
Not a question about this, but on page 206, and there's a chart showing a long-term debt payment schedule, and there's one of them that's to be determined for $6,690,000. I'm assuming that's for the school?
No, that's the bonds that we just sold this month, the 6.6 million.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
why at the time we didn't have the information, but we had estimated the debt service on that. And that's why now we have the actual debt service. But that's why it had to be determined, because we didn't know what the rates were going to be.
Do you have a rate of what we were earning or paying on the bonds?
I did not bring that with me.
I don't have it with me
And I want to say 2.6, but don't quote me on that. I'm sorry, I didn't bring that with me.
That's fine, thank you.
Counselor Heath.
On page 210, unfunded pension liability, I'm seeing a number of $293,833,227. I'm pretty sure
the
that's not it.
293? That's a formula. This debt limit is the state's to determine what our maximum debt limit is. And if you go under pension, did I interrupt you, though? Oh, okay. That's not our pension, but if you look over on the far column over the debt limit and where it says 3 times your base, that's how we determine the numbers that go in there to come to our grand total of 685. So the state says our unfunded pension could be $293 million.
That would be our allowed limit.
Yes, right. So each one of those categories, general purpose schools, sewers, urban renewal, but we don't have any urban renewal debt. But when the state puts the debt limit together, each of those categories has an amount that you use to multiply your base by to determine what your grand total allowable debt is. But you'll see our debt is only 66 million, so our excess is 619 million under what the state says we could. We don't ever want to go there.
All right, just a point of reference, how do you cut or reduce unfunded liabilities like that?
There was a time, I guess, if you had an unfunded liability that high, I would think that your actuary would be taking that into account and amortizing that unfunded amount over a set period of time. And I believe at the state one time, I don't know if it's still allowed, but the state had allowed you to bond for your unfunded pension. But I don't know if that's still allowed. But that would be a huge amount.
We had this discussion before, and I don't know if it was the night that the actuary was here or not, but we were looking at the 968 is ours, correct? 9.68, is that where we are?
I remember
Bottom
being
right
18.
corner.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Right.
Right.
And if you look
Oh,
at the
percent.
notes at the bottom, it says we can't exceed 10.
That's our internal
10%.
policy.
So that's what, even though the dollar amount, we've got $600 million to spare, our percentage is the problem, correct?
Yeah,
So-
the town's policy says it can't be 10% more of the general fund's expenditures. Now, that is comparing what our debt is to what the state's limit says, the 66 to the 685. We're only at 9% of what the state says we can be. But the part at the bottom is the town council's policy, and the general fund expenditures are not in here. That's just to show your policy versus what the state says. The state's far more liberal.
All right. Okay. Are there questions about this particular one? Councilor Atwater?
Cindy, if we have so much availability to bond more, isn't it a good time now to bond a little more so we can all go to Churchill Downs and see the Kentucky Derby?
No.
No.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding account 1076? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the amount from the finance director is $5,266,790. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously, 800. And we are left with contingency on page 212. To you, Councilor Oben.
And I don't have to give you a number for this one because I'm going to let the town manager do this one for you.
Okay.
Contingency fund, I would move, which number? Oh, thank you very much, 500,000.
500,000 moved by Aubrey, seconded by Atwater. Mr. Burt, did you need to add something to this, or?
I was just going to
discuss it?
mention, it always looks a little weird when you see, we really started at 650,000 for this year for the budgeted amount for contingency. As you take away, it makes that number go down, and we actually added to it, what was it, around $1 million-ish?
Yeah, 350 we had added to it.
So over $1 million,
Yeah,
so well over $1 million, or around $1 million. So we're starting at 500,000. Last year this current year we had more outstanding union contracts. That's why we had a higher amount for 2018. We ended up budgeting for $1 million. We still have quite a bit left, but we have 2 contracts still out there. Steelworkers, I believe, and telecommunicators are the 2 still out there that we'll have to settle this year, hopefully soon. And then just kind of generally things that come up. So we thought 500,000 is a reasonable amount to budget. So.
Are there questions for Mr. Burt or Ms. Lanter? Councilor Zafari?
I would rather not have to appropriate more money to this fund in the future. Are we fairly comfortable that we will not have to come back in November or so and say, hey, we need more money in that fund?
There's not a lot of employees in those two contracts.
No.
Go ahead.
And when we put together the 18 budget, knowing that those contracts were out, it was a decision we made of the amount to put in the budget. And based on our calculations, we were pretty confident it was not going to be enough, but conscious of the fact that it was a difficult budget year, you cross your fingers, but it didn't happen.
Are we not conscious of the fact that this is a difficult budget year?
Every year's a difficult budget year, isn't it? But last year was especially hard, looking down at, you know, at a minimum of what we thought was going to be a $5 million cut. I think we're a little bit better this year.
All right.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we will vote on account 1074 in the amount of $500,000. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? So moved unanimously. I believe that's everything for this evening. Now what I need to ask is, do we adjourn or do we recess? We recess because we're coming back tomorrow night then, or Tuesday night. It just seems like we should do this every day. Okay, so then I need a motion to recess and reconvene on Tuesday, April 24th at 6:30.
So moved.
Moved by Atwater.
Second.
Seconded by Moravsik. All those in favor of recessing until Tuesday, April 24th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? We are in recess.
Opposed.